Yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I shall begin when the gun is sounded.
Pichu.
Ka-chow.
Somehow, they found her. On the front page of the newspaper, they announced that the deep space explorers have found the remnants of her. It eludes me how she was found after all these years, but it eventually happened. My instinct was to go straight to Strider. He never told me about her, but I knew that she was someone important to him. To my assumption, he was shocked. But soon enough, he composed himself and asked me to accompany him. Something concerned me about Strider's reaction, but I agreed as we set our course to deep space.
Are you sure about this?
Dave said with a concerning voice, handing over a small suitcase to a suited lady. The boarding call for outer space travel was calling for first class. They still had time to talk.
I've never been this sure in my life.
She took the suitcase from him and adjusted her ties. Simple but elegant attire made her seem no different. It was not an appearance that Dave was used to.
I can't stay on just one planet, Dave. At least not here. There are too many memories I wish to leave behind. Not enough room to make new ones.
What about me? What about us? Everyone who you're leaving behind. Are we just another thing for you to forget?
You know that's not what I meant.
I know, it's just
Dave looked down at the floor and shook his head. Farewells aren't really his strong suit.
I just don't want to do this.
I know, Dave. I know.
She stepped a bit closer and wrapped her arms around Dave.
But this was bound to come someday, and I wanted to be ready.
Dave held her tightly in his arms, as if to never let her go. A drop of tear rolled down from his eyes.
I'm gonna miss you.
Me too, bud.
As she let go of Dave, she brushed his shoulder and adjusted his tie. She looked him in his teary eyes and gave him a smile of sorrow.
You know, how about this?
She continued.
1,000 years later from now, you come and visit me, okay? Shouldn't be too hard to find my trails.
She lifted Dave's chin and wiped the tears off his face.
You come visit me, and we'll say hello again.
The last boarding call for the ship rang across the room.
Take care of Jane, would you?
The suited lady took the suitcase, dusted it off, and walked towards the gate. As if to hold her a bit longer, Dave muttered out a joking question.
Seems a bit small for a long trip.
Well,
She turned her head around and looked at Dave.
it's bigger on the inside.
With one last look, she went through the gates as Dave Strider stood still in an empty port. Strider was silent throughout the trip. He looked out into the deep black void of space and said not a single word. This was one of his original friends, after all, one of the gods who created the world. I suspect the reason she even appeared on the front page is that she was more favorable one out of all. While I lacked the knowledge of who she was and what she meant to those who knew her, it was clear that it was always occupied a small corner of Strider's mind. As we slowly approached our destination, I had to ask Strider if he was okay. He assured me that he was fine, but a hint of uncertainty and determination was felt on his words. After all, who wouldn't be nervous after all these years? He wished to stay silent through the rest of the way, perhaps to keep his composure. But nothing worried me more about what might happen once we landed.
Did you find her?
One of her friends would ask.
No, another dead end.
Dave sat on the ground, exhausted. His friend crouched down in front of him, looking concerned for Dave.
I did find trails, but no one knows where she went after that.
Dave, you've been searching for a while. It's been more than decades since you last came back.
I know, but I'm close. I can feel it.
Dave.
His friend turned and sat beside him, putting her hand on his knee. Dave didn't move.
I have to find her. I have to. I made a promise. We made a promise.
Dave, listen.
She looked a bit hesitant, but she had to say it for both of their sakes.
I know you and she were close, but this is what she wanted. This was her choice. There was too much pain for her to bear. There was a reason why she had to leave, and we all respected that.
She continued.
We can't keep holding on to our past. At some point in our lives, we have to move on.
It pained her to say this. Excuse me, oh my god, why? Losing someone was not an uncommon feeling for both of them. The burden that they carried always reminded them of its existence. At least they weren't alone.
Maybe it's time for you to let her go.
We were greeted by some locals when we landed. They weren't new visitors from outer space and welcomed us with warm hospitality. Strider appreciated their kindness, but it was not but wasted not a single moment to look for who he came for. An old yellow salamander came up to him and offered us that they could lead us to her. We agreed and proceeded to follow their steps. The planet seemed peaceful and pleasant. A soft spring breeze would blow through the air as the warm sunlight shined through the tree leaves. It was quiet, but I could hear Strider muttering to himself as she would have loved this planet.
This is the main character is the same as the narrator, so
Okay, I'll just read it.
Jojo, if you want to do that.
You okay, Dave?
Huh? Yeah, I'm just.
Dave holds tightly to the newspaper. He could feel the chills down his spine as his hands trembled.
I just need a moment, sorry.
Okay, sure, but I mean, this is big news, right? She's one of the official gang. Dave sat down on his chair, wiped his shades, and took a breath. The news was very much out of the blue, and Dave needed to compose himself.
Yeah, she is.
Right then, what should we do? In silence, Dave looked out his window as if to contemplate. The decision was already made in his mind, but to act upon it was a different matter. Well, we gotta... Oh. That's you, I'm sorry.
Well, we got to visit her, don't we?
We?
Yeah, we. If you want to, that is.
I mean, sure.
Good. Pack your stuff and meet me in the port in about an hour. This is gonna be a fairly long trip.
Okay, got it. See you there. As they left through the door, Dave picked up his phone and dialed the number. He dialed rang a few times and eventually led to a voicemail.
Jane, it's Dave. They found her. I'm gonna go see her. It's gonna be a while, but
Dave hesitated a second.
I'll just tell your sister you said hi. I'm sorry.
When we reached the top of the hill, the old salamander pointed us towards a statue. Bronze, simple, and recognizable. Strider slowly approached the statue, kneeled to read the plate below it. In the memory of June Egbert, a loving leader and a dear friend. He sat there for a while, reading the same words over and over. I knew he needed some time alone. As I stepped away, I could see him take his shades off and place them on the foot of the statue. One may pity him for a tragic farewell, but he knows that this closure may open another door in his life. Well, there's no doubt that Egbert did not forget Strider. She led a good life with new memories. She passed not alone. Strider knew this too. The man he once was grew to become what Egbert would have been proud of. And once the time comes, he'll be ready to greet it with opening arms. Wow. Okay, that was a bad way to end. I'm sorry. Wow.
I still want to know.
That was my every pony moment. Fuck. Yeah, that was like touching. I like the part at the end because like it was clearly eating Dave's ass inside to be like have to hold that promise, and then it was just gone. I kind of like media that covers maybe the sweet end of the bittersweetness of death. It's very cool.
It was very good. It was
And-
very emotional.
Good job, Uber.
Good job, Uber.
Yeah.
It's really
Cool
good.
Bar.